Okay, hi, I'm Rachel Prohl, and I'm going to start off by having everybody introduce themselves, because that would be nice. So I'm going to start at this end, and if you could just say your name, what grade you're in, or what you do, if you're an expert. And then, if you are a student, could you tell us what book you read? All right.
I'm Taya, I'm in 7th grade, and I read The Chocolate War.
I'm Cassie, and I'm in the 7th grade, and I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I'm Margot Piver, and I'm the Library Media Specialist at Pioneer.
I'm Malia Dalglish, and I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm 7th grade.
I'm Clementine Barnum, I'm in 7th grade, and I read The Great Gatsby.
I'm Peter Hoffman, I'm in 8th grade, and I read The Giver.
I'm Drew Hollapeter. I'm in 8th grade and I read Fahrenheit 451.
Ben Ugaldia. Ben Ugaldia, I'm the librarian at Wahai.
I'm Levi Geese. I'm a 7th grader and I read The Chocolate War.
I'm Matilda Morris, and I read The Wrinkle in Time, and I'm in 7th grade.
I'm Madison Furstenberg, and I'm in the 7th grade, and I read The Hunger Games.
I'm Luke Matlock. I'm in 7th grade and I read Captain Underpants. I'm Jacob Rabilski and I'm in 8th grade and I read Paper Towns.
I'm Ann Haley, and I was the director of this public library for 20 years.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to start off with our experts and ask them some questions. All right, first off, do you think that books should be banned?
I would say no. I don't think that books should be banned for their controversial content as long as they are well written and well reviewed and are accurate and are knowledgeable.
We're going to pass it over to you.
Every time I select a book for the library, I go through a process similar to what was mentioned there, where I look at the qualities of the book, the reviews, etc. And I purchase those for my group of students. And what I purchase for them I feel is appropriate. And no, I honestly don't think they should be banned either.
And at the middle school, we also have a vetting process that we go through before we select books. We think about the age group that are going to be reading them, and we feel that there should be a broad variety of topics available to kids. Kids are pretty mature nowadays and are very interested in many different things. And so if they have made it through the process, if to get into the library, then we don't ban books. That would be a parental choice for them to not have their child read a book.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is, have you ever taken a book off the shelves because you thought it was unfit or not the age, you didn't think it was good for the age group that was going to read it?
If we have identified a book as something that might be controversial, then the staff of the library, we always read those books. And we can't read every single book, but if there's one that we feel kind of has surfaced as having a little trickier topics to it, we read it and we re-vet it at that point by rereading some other library documents and different websites that we go to see what other people have said about the books. And we generally will not remove them, though, because we were very careful initially in the selection. But it does allow us to have critical conversations with kids that are choosing to read those books.
The answer is just no. I never have. And frankly, I doubt I ever will. I'd really stress this idea that the conversation is between your student and yourself about what's appropriate for your family. That's really not my part. So no, I never have.
The public library, like school libraries, also goes through a complaint process and a vetting process. And books for which there is an informal or a formal challenge are reviewed and carefully scrutinized, and a decision is rendered, which is forwarded to the board for their knowledge and information, and also back to the complainant. The only book I have ever taken off the shelf was a complaint written about a book of pregnancy with a copyright date of 1948, and it was still in the collection. And when we vetted the book, we determined that the information contained therein was obsolete and irrelevant. And on that basis, we did remove it from the shelf.
Thank you. Okay, one more question, just for our expert.
Okay.
What is your position on filtering the internet in libraries?
That's a really tough one, because the decision of libraries to make materials available to people of all ages has been preempted by federal legislation. So libraries are now operating within that sphere. These are difficult, or these are interesting times, because there is so much available, far more than when I was in middle school. And so part of the challenge is to help everyone of all age, whether it be a young person or an adult, to use all of the information resources well and to make good, educated choices. Part of the problem with filtering is that there are perfectly good First Amendment sites that are not available. And so there is a question about what should be available or what not. But at the Yakima Library, when we had this issue, we deferred to parents. And we decided that it was parents who should make choices for their children on what kind of places they should go on the internet. But it is a widely available knowledge base that should not be overlooked.
Thank you.
So it's just such a difficult question, and I'm lucky to say that the decisions about what websites are made available to the students at Wahai is made at the district level by the people that run the technology department. That said, typically I find myself more often than not writing requests to the technology department to open access to the internet. In addition to that, what I tend to do is educate students on how to evaluate a site's usefulness, purpose, and bias. And frankly, I put more stock in teaching students to choose for themselves as opposed to choosing for them.
All right.
There are school board policies in place that define what types of materials are available to children, and the purpose of a school, of course, is to educate. So the things that are made available to children have to have an educational focus and complement what they are learning in the curriculums at their grade levels. So generally, the things that are blocked are things that pop up as like being a gaming site or something like that, and that doesn't necessarily have an educational purpose. So when the technology department unlocks something within the request, it has to state what the educational purpose is for access to that site. And if it is felt that there is one, then they'll unlock it for a class to use that. But again, that's the nature of a school versus a public entity like this library.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to ask some questions for our students here. So, are there two people who would like to give us their feedback on whether books should be banned or not?
So the opinions I have are,
I don't think that people should be able to ban books just on their personal opinion because that's biased. And I think that people have the right to read what they want and at what age they want to read it. So I think that really goes to the person and their either legal guardian or themselves.
I think banning books is kind of unnecessary because depending on the age level that's going to read the book, it might be a choice that the student should make. And I think with some books, it should just be that they aren't, you shouldn't be, I think in middle school libraries that most books should be available to students because at middle school you're mature enough to choose what you want to read, and I think that banning books from the library like that is unnecessary.
All right, I'm gonna ask 2 more students. Could you give us could you tell us what book you read again? And then could you give us some feedback on it? Like, why do you think that it was banned? And do you think it should have been banned?
So I read The Giver, and like I can see why it was banned and like the reasoning behind it, because for sure there are some strange scenes that like maybe shouldn't be like there for a kindergartner, but I mean it's truly fine for even a 6th grader to read it. And so and then there's some just suggestive scenes throughout the book, like disobedience and rewarding disobedience. And so like I still can see why people would want their kids not to be reading it, but I don't see why you need to take it away from everybody else's children.
Captain Underpants.
Captain Underpants, I mean, some of the reasons are pretty obvious. There's a old man running around in his underpants. Maybe some small children should not be seeing that. So. Another reason is there's a lot of misspelled words, but they misspell them on purpose. And if you're at a young age, I don't think that's a good choice because they might hang on to that and misspell words quite a bit. So I don't think it should be banned for grades 2 and up, but I mean, if you're in 1st grade, probably not the best choice.
Okay, so another big thing that relates to banning books is the Pico case. Would somebody like to describe that for us?
The Pico case was some students, I think they were in high school. The school district took out like 10 books, I think, and the students didn't like why they did that, so they sued the school, and it went far enough up to the Supreme Court, and so it was a pretty big case.
All right, would someone else like to elaborate on that? Okay. Okay. Could someone explain to us the First Amendment?
The First Amendment states that everyone has the right to, they have the right of freedom of expression and speech, so they can say or express themselves any way they want. And it also says that they can believe any religion that they want to, and also that the government cannot create a religion strictly or only for the entire country to believe in. And that's, yeah.
All right. Would someone like to tell us about what you would do if a book was banned in your school?
Well, if a book was banned at Pioneer Middle School, there's not really much I could do, but there's no reason to really ban a book, then yeah, I don't really think there's any reason to ban a book at pretty much anywhere. And there's not much you could do if a book was banned. Just kind of read the book at your house or something. Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Okay. So if a book was banned at Pioneer Middle School, well, probably try to read the book somewhere else, for one. And honestly, I don't check books out from the school library that much. So I guess I just have to let it be banned.
Would someone else like to talk about it?
I would personally, like you guys were saying, try to read the book somewhere else to find out if it's a good book. And if I would like the book, I would probably stand up for it and try to make like a presentation about reasons I think that the book should not be banned. And I would go from there and talk to the school district about getting the book back into the library.
Thank you. Okay. How has your opinion changed over this project on book banning, or has it even?
Well, I don't really think that books should be banned. I've thought that since before this project, and I'm still during this project. Like, I think it's okay if you limit it to some age groups, but I think it's mostly the parents' decision and the kids' decision on what they want to read and what's appropriate for them to read. Like with the speech thing. They say that you can ban a book, but then to take away the privilege of someone else reading the book, then it's kind of like taking away their free speech if they want to read the book there. So I don't really get that.
Well, depending on the book, it's kind of a big deal. It's taking away someone's freedom of speech. And I mean, I used to kind of agree with banning books because honestly, some books should have the reasons to be banned in certain places. I don't necessarily think The Hunger Games should be available to all of the children in a grade school, because I read The Hunger Games as a 4th grader because I was ready for that content, because I was a very mature 4th grader. But I know some kids that wouldn't be ready for that and would give them nightmares because it is kind of an intense book. And so it is, but now I kind of have a different perspective, because it's like certain books are banned and there's not really necessarily a reason. And I mean, it's more of a parent's choice if they don't want a child to read it, because if a child wants to read a book, but let's say their parents don't have the money to buy them the book, that's kind of taking it away from them when there's only a few other students that wouldn't be ready for that content. So it really should be a parent's decision to take it away from their child if they don't feel the need for them to read it. But I mean, like I said, there is certain restrictions for certain books in certain places. So.
Alrighty, I think this is going to be our last question. But what do you think about filtering the internet? What do you think about? What do you think about filtering the internet in school libraries or public libraries? Would someone like to answer that?
I think that filtering the internet is actually a really good idea because there's some pretty messed up stuff out there. Peter. And yeah, I support that decision fully. So.
All right. Could you actually tell us about what you think should be available in school libraries? What do you think? On the internet? Would you like to think about it?
Do I get a phone call?
All right, sir. All right, would someone else like to answer that?
Well, I guess that some certain things should be banned, like gaming websites and stuff, because that's not really educational. And a school is really a place of learning, so math.
All right, I think that is the end of our panel discussion.
Rachel, how about some audience questions?
Oh. Would anyone in the audience like to ask a question?
I have a question for the district. How does the district decide what sites, and who in the district decides what sites are filtered or not?
I get that. The decision is mainly based on board decisions. So there's board policies. Those board policies then are enacted by, I believe, the administration. As far as exactly who you would want to call, I typically call Forrest the tech coordinator. Excuse me, the tech coordinator for the district. But yeah, I mean, it's based on the Board of Ed and their policies that they've set down. There's also a lot of decisions made based solely on whether or not that may infect the network at the school district. Bandwidth is also another consideration. It's an interesting question. I really don't have a complete answer for it, but other than it's board policy, then it goes down to a superintendent or the technology department, and they enact or act on that board policy. Who precisely? I would go to Forrest then.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, the research about if you put a bowl of M&Ms right in front of somebody, they're more likely to eat them, right? Is there any policy related to, and I'll open the elephant in the room, child pornography, something that's illegal? What are the policies regarding those kinds of things?
Okay, would someone like to answer that?
Maybe for a public librarian, maybe for Ann Haley, that might be a good one.
In the case of child pornography, it is illegal, flat out illegal. And we had one incident in which an individual downloaded child pornography, which is illegal. And because we had identifiers on every person who used the internet at the public library, the evidence that what that person was downloading along with their individual identification was forwarded to the local office of the FBI with my request that I never wanted to see this individual again. But where the decision becomes really tough is material that is not illegal but may be offensive. And there is material that is, different kinds of material are offensive to different people. And some people are offended by sexually explicit material. Other people are offended by exceedingly violent material. And how to make those choices among all different kinds of material within a public library setting. But as far as child pornography is concerned, it's flat out illegal, and it is criminal activity. But in terms of what is offensive is another choice. The issue that we had with commercially available filtering is that it commonly came with a political or a religious bias, so that perfectly legitimate First Amendment protected sites like the Quakers, like the AAUW, like a whole lot of others were filtered because of a particular opinion of the commercially available filtering. And that was my challenge with the filtering, was that any adult certainly should be able to look at any First Amendment protected site if they wished. But it also is a community decision, and what is appropriate for a particular community. This community is different than other communities, and how will that access be provided that is within the values of a particular community. It's a really tough decision to make. But I would also say that within a public library, because part of the role is as a foundation of our democracy, in which there should be opinions available on all sides of every subject. If there isn't something in a public library to offend everybody, then it's not a very good public library.
Back there.
My question is for the students. If you knew that a book was banned, would you be more or less likely to check it out and try to read it?
Okay, so that's kind of like what would happen is because everybody wants to read the book that they're trying to take out of the library. And it's just kind of tempting to read something that people are trying to make non-available to you. Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, what he just said, that kind of describes the teenage mind. It's like, if you're trying to make something non-available, then they want to read or do whatever you're trying to make unavailable to them, and they're trying to do it as soon as they can.
It's kind of like if you're a child and your mom says, "Don't touch the stove, it's gonna burn you." You have to do it at least once because it's going against what your parents said. You have to do it because they told you not to. You have to see what they're going to do. They don't do anything except hold you that you cry. I mean, they don't do anything. It's you soon learn that that's a very bad decision. But it depends, kind of like with the book. It's like you read it and you're like, oh, okay, nope, shouldn't have read that one, or yeah, nope, don't take that out, I like that, or you have to read it. I mean, it's kind of like how the human mind works. Like if someone's trying to take something away from you, you're gonna get it back. So.
All right, one more answer. Okay, never mind then. All right.
You mentioned the Pico case and said that it went all the way to the Supreme Court, but I didn't hear what the outcome of this case was and how it had a bearing on banned books.
All right.
So the Pico case, as Matilda was saying, was four high schoolers brought to a court that some books were taken out of their the libraries. And the schools, they sued the school, so the school fought against it, and in that ruling, the kids won. So the schools brought it to the next level, And in that one, nobody should have the right to just take it out because it was not suitable for that age group, or not suitable, just not suitable in general. So nobody should have that ability to do that to a school and learning environment.
I'm just gonna add on to what she said, but it's not really, the school board just kind of went into the school in the middle of the night and took out the books in the middle of the night. So they didn't go through any actual like court ruling, or they didn't try to make a decision together, and like parents didn't even try to get it banned out of the book or ban the books. And so they just kind of went in there like with nobody's permission in the school, and they just took out the books. So they made it so that that wasn't possible, not so that banning a book wasn't possible.
Okay.
Keep in mind that one of the students who sued the school board was a middle schooler. So it wasn't all just high school.
And on to what you said, and the actual like whole big ordeal took like up to or over 8 years. So the kids were well out of school, and they felt the need to keep going on with it.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
General consensus on the panel is that banning books is bad, but filtering the internet is good. What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, the internet's way different because it allows access to a lot more stuff, and people can get to it a lot quicker. Because if you want to learn something from a book, you have to go and actually read through it, and for that you have to actually find the book. But with the internet, you can just, type in the address and it'll take you right to that, so people can go to a lot more things a lot quicker, and that's why it should be filtered.
I think there's a natural filtering process in a library just because of the volume. You can't put every single book that exists in a library, whereas in the internet you can, essentially.
And also to what Drew said, the internet, like Wikipedia, anybody could add to that. So it's not a citable source. So but the books have a process to go through, and I think publishing wouldn't just put any random thing into, and the schools and the libraries wouldn't just put anything. So after that, the banning is a bigger process than just not letting people go onto the internet. No, it lets them go onto the internet, but banning sites and stuff. So more people have access to that. So the books have real facts, most of them.
Another thing that's different from banning a book to filtering the internet is the internet has that visual component of you can actually see something, whereas in a book you have to make it up for yourself in your head. So it's kind of like use your imagination for a book, but on the internet you just see it, and it can be graphic and it can be inappropriate. So you have to think about the difference between what you see and what you think.
All right, one more.
In most books, it's not really as graphic as on the internet because the internet is giving it to you, but whereas a book is just more suggesting something, and so you put your own thought into it, and banning a book is more like taking away a thought. Someone sat down and poured all of their thought into this one book, but whereas the internet, someone just typed it out on a whim and just kind of put it in there, and then, but in a book, it takes such a long process, and getting that book approved and everything is such a long and grueling process, and it goes through so many stages, and they have to rewrite it and all the things, and it's just taking away someone's right. It's like the First Amendment never says anything about books. Nothing. But a book is more like a thought than just writing. Like the Hunger Games, Susan Collins, she came up with a thought and it just exploded and she poured it all into this book. But if someone banned that, it'd be like taking away all of her thought that she put in. So it's just taking away the rights of the First Amendment.
Maybe one more question.
Okay, one more question from the audience.
Thanks to everybody, regardless. Really appreciate it. It's been very informative. So I'm wondering what happens next in terms of the banned books and where students and/or librarians see this going next. Julia.
Very much.
Well, now that a big portion of us have learned and really now understands the whole what the process is to ban a book and why books are banned, if in our near future, far future, we find out that a book was banned, and some kids might just be like, oh yeah, whatever, who knows what that means, and then we'll actually know why it could have been banned, and we could have a really strong opinion on it, and we could really fight against that banning or whatever happens to that book, and so we can really get into maybe not the Supreme Court like the Pico case, but we could go to we could sue schools for banning a book that we strongly don't agree with.
Alright.
Well, as for banning books, it's never going to stop. It's just going to keep going on and keep going on and keep going on. And there's nothing we can really do about it unless we keep informing other people about banning books, and to a point where almost at least 90% of our school knows what banning book is, and it just gets to such an overwhelming spot where if they try to take away our books, it's like, nope, there's 90% of our school that doesn't want that book banned. Too bad, I think we're going to win.
Could we have an expert also answer this one too?
I think the choice for each one of you is who is going to make the choices for you on what you want to read, see, and view. And then the second choice is, after you answer the first of who makes your choice, is do you make choices for others, and on what right do you make that choice? So it is really a question of access and who makes those decisions. So as you go forward, you may each want to think about who would you want to make decisions for you personally.
Okay, thank you everyone on the panel. I think that is the end of our discussion.
Could we give Rachel a round of applause for being our moderator? Great job, Rachel. I'd also like to, again, thank all the students and the experts for being here today. A huge thank you to Liz George and the library as well. And then if you have a chance, if you'd get around to the... yeah, did you have something you'd like to say first?
Yeah, I think we have a round of applause for Mr. Calzaretti for having
Thank you very much. That was very nice of you. Get around to all the displays, talk with the kids. Our experts are also going to be going around doing some evaluations and chatting with each of the groups. So thank you again very much for coming today. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you very much.